I'm Denise Colson, the author and developer of the Strategic Trauma and Abuse Recovery System, or 12STR. In this short training, I am reviewing the near-term trauma application of 12STR. At the end, you will also hear a role-play example of one type of application of the lend a hand method. I hope you find this helpful. There's a structured beginning and ending to this model where hopefully people are not in counseling forever. There's a beginning, there's a working through, there's a grieving process, and then there is a reintegrating everything that God has done in their lives. So, thinking about that, if we have a one incident type of trauma, like what I experienced being assaulted at knife point, if we can address that source of trauma, maybe in the first 6 months to a year, before it grows into the long-term impact, maybe we can prevent a lot of additional losses, a lot of time spent adopting a trauma survivor identity. And so that's what we're going to talk about more specifically today. How do we use a near-term approach? And in doing that near-term approach, work with people maybe to prevent additional development of trauma symptoms. Then maybe we can prevent a lot of damage, further damage, from being done. I call it the lend a hand method because I like to use your hand to help people remember the steps or stages that we're asking people to do. So it is designed to follow the 12STR protocols. It's used with traumatic one-time-like experiences, maybe within the last 6 months. You might be able to do it within a year. It can also be used with crisis managers and on-the-job trauma, and can be done formally in a counseling session. An example of that is when people first come in and you're trying to get to know them, you can use this method right off because sometimes they come in crisis. Maybe something has just recently happened. Maybe they have a traumatic relationship that they're in and you want them to move toward doing the long-term trauma work, but they're just not ready. And they keep bringing in new events. This is real common with when you have maybe domestic violence, physical violence, or maybe a lot of verbal abuse or altercations going on. Then you can use it in the counseling session with people when they bring these incidents in, even though you want to eventually move them to doing the long-term trauma work, you can use this as an intervention just on a weekly basis with your client. You can also just do it informally after teaching it. I've had people tell me, because I teach it a lot for lay counseling classes and in my peer coaching class, for people to use at church, like when people come forward and need somebody to talk to. Or maybe I've had one person tell me they used it in a grocery store, just talking to somebody in line at the grocery store. So it can be used formally or informally. You can use it with your spouse, use it with a colleague, use it in supervision. So let's talk about the steps. Step one is we're going to ask people to tell you what happened. Tell me what happened. And we're going to ask them to give us detail. What happened? Wow. And then what happened? Okay. And oh man, what happened next? And we're going to get as much of the story of what happened as we can. We're going to keep them from going into other stories, because one of the most common survival responses in the brain is distraction. So it's, yeah, this was happening, and oh, it reminds me of when this happened. No, let's don't go there. Let's just tell me this story. Let's just focus on this story for now. We want to keep people focused as much as we can on just this story. So when I'm working with a firefighter or a police officer, tell me, tell me what happened first, then what happened. So then the pointer finger is feelings. What did you feel? Now, here in my training, I emphasize a lot, and that we don't say, how are you feeling? How implies judgment. How implies good, bad, and judging our emotions. We want to know proper words for our feelings, for our emotions. I felt sad. I felt hurt. I felt angry. Now, when we're doing this less formally, we have to accept more of what people give us. So if people say, I guess I felt like he shouldn't have been doing that, that's also not a feeling, that's a thought. So we're trying to keep people out of their head for a few moments and into their feelings for a few moments. So you might ask them, and when you think about that, what emotion comes up? When you think that thought, what emotion do you feel? Now, for crisis managers, I want to hear their personal feelings, their personal emotions, not necessarily about how good a job they did or about the other responders, but I want to hear them about the victim that they're dealing with, perhaps, or the perpetrators that they're dealing with. We want to allow them to recount their feelings, their facts. What happened next? How and what did you feel? And we can even share our feelings in an empathetic way. Wow, just listening to you, I feel overwhelmed. I feel shocked. And let them share their feelings. And what happened next? Then what happened? Until we get as much of the story and feelings out. And then we want to ask also about feelings. And what are you feeling now as we're talking about it? What do you feel right now as we're talking about this? So that we can move it from the talking about stuff in the past to let's move right here into the present, me and you. What am I feeling right now as I'm talking about this? And so we're moving back and forth in time from the past to the present, letting them tell their story, keeping them focused like blinders on a horse, keeping them focused on the topic, moving back and forth. If you're trained in the long-term model, it doesn't require any kind of special way of saying it or using I or using you, but it's just all about tracking with them. What are you feeling? Wow, this is what I'm feeling. And what are you feeling now as we're talking about it? Now we're going to go beyond that because we want to get to that personal identity. So the thing about crisis managers and people in ministry who really function as crisis managers is we have two identities. And we have our personal identity that we're born with, that's God-given. And then we have our professional identity. We are trained as a counselor, trained as a pastor. And that's our professional identity. And our professional identity is trained to expect horrific things that we're going to deal with. We're going to hear horrific stories. We're going to hear horrific things. So when an event happens as a professional, our professional identity absorbs it and initially appears to be unaffected, right? Because this is what we're trying to do. But our personal identity is always affected because we got into this field to help people because we value people and we value people's relationship with God and with each other. And so we have strong values and beliefs. And when we are working and our professional identity absorbs a vicarious type of traumatic experience and it affects our personal identity and it breaks our values, our beliefs, our expectations, it creates losses. So when you are talking with a crisis manager, the temptation is for them to hide behind their professional identity and talk to you as a professional, as a pastor. And what we want is we want to deal with the personal identity. So as a person, what should or shouldn't have happened? What do you think this person should have done? What should have happened? And you can ask this by getting at the shoulds. What do you hope would have happened? What are you hoping? What did you hope for? What did you expect? What do you think should have happened? Any way you want to kind of phrase it to get at their core values and beliefs, their personal core values and beliefs. Because that's where the damage is done, is in our identity to our core values and beliefs, that contradiction. And then in step 4, we want to think about the ring finger. We want to think about, what did you lose because of this event? Because of these contradictions, what did you lose? Now, when we're doing this formally, I have a list of losses, potential losses that people can read down and to understand. But when you're doing it less formally, maybe you're not sitting in a counseling session, or you're sitting in a counseling session, but maybe you haven't given out a loss list for people. Then maybe you can even say, I guess if I were thinking about being in that situation, I think I would have lost some self-esteem and some trust in humanity. And maybe I would have lost being comfortable, even being a teacher. And now what are you feeling about losing those things? What do you feel? What do you feel toward that person who did this? And you're giving them permission to be angry, to feel hurt, to explore what emotion as a person they're having, because none of us is our professional identity. Even though we have to wear our professional identity, because as a crisis manager, you wear that identity 24 hours a day. As a pastor, you're always on call. As a counselor, unless you're on vacation, and even there, I've been at Disney World and had to break up a fight using my counseling skills at Disney World. So even there, I had to shift into professional identity mode and work with this young woman who was losing it in front of me. So that's who we are, but that is not our identity. That's our professional role. But when there's so much damage done to the personal identity, we can hide behind our professional identity, and it begins to eclipse our personal identity in an attempt to keep from knowing and being aware of the damage to our personal identity. And here at this point, we're also, as we're having them share losses, and maybe even sharing with them, I think just listening to you, I've lost this. And what are you feeling about those losses? Hearing you describe it, I feel this and this. And as you get to step 4, you want to ask them, is there anything else about this particular incident that we haven't talked about? And allow them to share. Maybe they have to go back. Oh yeah, I remember also there was this that happened, and you process it again until they've gotten the whole story out. Again, keeping them focused on just the story, not allowing them to shift to another story. Shifting from one story to another is what we call the round robin defense. The round robin defense is what you experience with clients when you're working with trauma survivors who have multiple sources and you're not using a structured model. And they come in and they say, okay, here's the problem. I know I have trauma. This is the problem. And next week they come in, oh, I feel a lot better about this. This is the problem. Here's the real problem. I need to talk about that. Next week they come in, oh no, I was wrong. It's that other thing. And they just shift around from thing to thing until you're not really accomplishing anything. Maybe they're venting, but they're not really resolving anything. And so you have to add structure for that long-term trauma. So we're adding that structure here as much as possible without offending or alienating them, to keep them focused on this one story until we're done. And then if we feel the need, we can move on to another story, maybe preferably another story at another time. And then finally, the pinky finger is an affirmation, some type of an affirmation. Like, it sounds like you did a great job managing the situation. You sound like a very caring teacher. I want to affirm you as a counselor. You did everything you could. You're a good mom. However it is that fits for the particular situation, you want to offer an affirmation. All right, and those are the 5 steps. So while we're not doing the long-term trauma, we're doing some of the elements that we do in phase 2 processing. Now, I'm going to share an online role play using the Linda Hand method. The name is changed and the screen is blurred to protect the participants. So tell me the story of what happened.
Okay, I asked my husband to be sure not to share my personal business with his sister.
Okay.
And with much conviction, he shared that he would not.
Okay.
That he would never do that and have never done it. And also in the past, he's told me not to tell anything.
Let's just stick with this one incident. Let's just stick with this one incident.
Okay. And then I walked in the very next day and he was sharing my personal business with his sister.
Okay. So you walked in the room and you caught him telling your personal business to his sister.
Yes.
And what did you feel?
I was shocked, confused, angry, bitter,
Yeah.
hurt.
Yep. Okay.
Rejection.
All right. Then what happened?
I discussed it with him and reminded him that he had told me several times not to share what he has shared, anything that has happened with his sister to anybody else, since we're in the same class and that kind of thing, same school growing up. And I didn't share things that he had shared with me about his sister, that they both would ask me not to share. So I expected him to do the same thing, and he did.
Wow. And what did you feel?
Betrayed.
Oh, yeah.
Disappointment. Sad.
Yeah.
The loss of, I guess, confidence.
Well, let's stick with the feelings for a minute. What are you feeling right now as you're thinking and recalling and telling me the story? What are you feeling towards your husband?
I guess ashamed. Bitterness.
I guess I feel a little bit humiliated and really stabbed in the back.
Oh, yeah, that's a good word.
Yeah. Can we talk about what do you think your husband should have done? What values and beliefs of yours did he contradict by doing this, by telling your personal business to his sister?
Being honest, truthful, honoring the marriage vows.
Yeah. So you believe he should be honest and truthful to you.
Yes.
Honor your marriage vows first.
Everybody's, but yes, mine too.
Yeah. So as you think about that, what did you lose?
Trust.
Yeah. Anything else you can think of?
I guess a best friend.
Oh, yeah. That attachment, intimacy with him.
Yes. Yes.
And as you think about those losses, what are you feeling right now?
Alone.
Yeah.
Not first place.
As you think about not being first place, what do you feel?
I guess not protected.
Okay.
Exposed.
Oh, yeah. Vulnerable. And just putting myself in your place, I feel so sad. Honestly, I just feel brokenhearted and sad. Any other feelings?
Did I use the word betrayal already?
Yes, but you can say it again.
Okay, betrayed.
Yeah.
Betrayed.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially because the day before he was such.
Well, just stick with this story.
Yeah, it's the same story.
Okay.
Just the day before, he had just told me that he was not going to. He had
Made the
asked
commitment.
to share, and he turned right
And
around and was indeed sharing.
broke the commitment. I just want to say that it sounds like you did everything you could to create a trusting atmosphere with your husband. And it sounds like you're really working at your marriage.
Yes.
And I just want to affirm you for that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for sharing that with me. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right. All right. Very good. That was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for listening to this short training. Visit traumaeducation.com, all one word, for more information on upcoming workshops.